This Talks from CritsHappen.com. Thanks for watching and welcome back. Today I'm really excited. We have a critical review of a game from a good friend of ours called thegamecrafter.com. Now if you're unfamiliar with the Game Crafter, essentially what they are is a print-on-demand service for anyone who wants to make a board game. You could make your own and make one copy. You could make multiple copies and sell it in their store, or you could make multiple copies to be able to shill out to different publishers to see if it's something that they'd like to pick up from you. But it's a really great service because you can do everything from building a board game to building a card game to building hexagon and battle games. There's just endless possibilities, and they do a really, really good job. Well, today we have a game from them called the Lacuna Expanse. Now, this is based on an online game and an online property which, quite frankly and very transparently, I am not very familiar with. So I went into this game completely blank, clear slate, taking a look at the world and the universe and everything involved. We'll get into a little bit more of my thoughts at the end, but for right now, we want to let you know that what this game is really about is building a space station. And it's a cooperative game. It's not competitive. It's for 2 to 4 players, plays in about 45 minutes, I would say. And what we have found is that you work together to build a space station before enemy ships are coming after you. The idea and the design of the story, which is very minimal that you get with the book, but doing some online research you can find out more. Essentially, Earth and its colonists are out in the middle of deep space, and they run into this area called the Lacuna Expanse. Unfortunately, we weren't the first ones there. And the original inhabitants, or another alien race called the Sabin, I think is how you pronounce it, they want us out. So they're going to send enemy ships after us while we're trying to build up a space station. It's a very symbol-driven game, and it's all using these small cards, these like half-size cards as I call them. There's different cards for planets, for ships, and for stations, but we'll get into much more of that when we show you the gameplay. For right now, the one thing to know is that the entire game was built using the Game Crafter services. It was actually designed by J.T. Smith, who is the gentleman who is the CEO of the same company, thegamecrafter.com. So it's not only interesting in that it's one of our Game Crafter game reviews, but it's actually from the gentleman who actually owns the company, which is kind of nice to see him not just making games, but making games, if that makes sense. But is it fun? At the end of the day, space sounds really cool, invading aliens sounds really cool, everybody likes flipping cards, but is this a fun game? Well, come with me, let's delve into the deepest, darkest, coldest areas of space, and let's see if we can build our space station before the evil Sabin come after us with their enemy ships. Let's take a look at the Lacuna Expanse. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the setup for Lacuna Expanse. I should let you know there is a solo version of this game. When you look at it on the GameCrafter.com, you'll notice it actually says for 1 to 4 players. I'll give you a little bit more of my opinion at the end, but it's really best with 2+ players. Optimally plays with 3 to 4 players. But what we are looking at here are 3 different decks. You have the station deck, the ship deck, and the planet deck. Now, as I mentioned, you want to be able to work with your other players or by yourself in a solo game to build up a space station. But you can't just start building a space station. You have to start small and build up to get towards that station. Every player is going to start with a colony ability tracker. And essentially what you're doing is there's going to be symbols on the cards that match these symbols down the left-hand side. And every time you get a new card, you can use one of your little wood tokens here to remind yourself. You start the game with the ability to draw 1 planet card, to play 1 planet card, and to have a hand size of 2. That's why those circles are in red. And then as you acquire new cards, you can move this up to remind you, I can do this twice, or I can do this 4 times, or I've gotten a new ability and I can put that there. So it's kind of nice to be able to keep track of that. It is a little challenging when you get later on in the game and there's quite a bit of abilities to remember how many times that you've used them. What we have tried to do is to count down. So for example, if this says I can draw 1 planet card and I got this all the way up to 4, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4 and draw 4 planet cards and know that I've used that. The problem is that at the end of the turn, you got to count back up to what you have. And that can just kind of take some time after you get a very large colony built up. But let's talk about the colonies to start off. So everyone starts the game with a command center. Now you'll notice at the very top, there's 4 little white pips. That tells you how many of that card are in a deck. So whenever you draw a card from the planet deck or the ship deck or the station deck, you'll be able to see how many other copies of it there are. It also tells me just what I was talking about before in terms of starting our colony ability tracker. I can draw 1 planet card, I can play 1 planet card, and I can have a maximum hand size of 2 cards. You'll also notice around the outside there are 4 black dots. Those are your location points. When you draw new cards, you're going to add them to your colony's command center to expand your colony and get more abilities. But you can only connect them to buildings that are, or sites that are already part of your colony that have a matching side that's open and the same color. You're going to see purple, yellow, blue, and black. So you want to make sure that you are not only getting the right abilities in your colony, but that you're working with each other. You will be able to acquire the ability to trade with other players. So it's not like you have to build the best colony and your other players, you want to thwart them from building their best colony. You actually want to help them. So if you have a card in your hand, for example, let's take a shot here. Okay, perfect. So the spaceport. This has a black pip on top. It tells me there's 4 copies in the deck. It would allow me to play a ship card, and there's a yellow connector on the bottom. Now I could put that right into play like this down here. It would give me the ability to play a ship card, which I would then put on my colony ability tracker. But the thing is I can't draw a ship card, so that's not really going to help me at the moment. If later in the game I had a other player that was playing with me that had a yellow pip open on the top, I could not do this because it's black to yellow, but I could trade them this so that they could put it there and that they could potentially add it to their colony to help them as well. So there's a lot of teamwork and a lot of strategy, not just in building a colony that is efficient, I guess is the way to say it, but working with the other players to make sure you're each maximizing the capabilities of your colony. It does take a few games to start to understand that, and I think it's just a matter of understanding the cards that are in the planet deck, which is the primary green deck here that you're going to be using. You can see there's many more planet deck cards than there are ship or station. Now, one thing I do want to say is the ships. Now, just because I said earlier that the bad guys, the Sabin, are actually coming after us with their ships, doesn't mean that these ships cards are all bad guys. There are some that are going to help you, and yes, there are some that are the enemy ships. In fact, there's enemy ships in each 3 of the decks. So at any given time when you're drawing cards, you do have the risk of drawing an enemy ship. Now what you want to do is when you were to draw cards, and let's say you discard them, what we do is we discard cards to one side up here, and we play enemy ships from their decks down below so we can keep track of them. So as they come out, they'll be able to easily be seen. A normal game results in an end when 7 enemy ships have come out from all of the decks. There's going to be abilities throughout the game that will increase that, so you could make it where you need 8 or you need 9. There's also going to be abilities that allow you to shuffle ships back into their decks. So it's not like just the first 7 are going to automatically kill you, and if you shuffle poorly, you're going to have a really short and bad game. There's actually quite a bit of flexibility in terms of what you can mess around with each 3 of these decks. And that's part of the fun of the Lacuna Expanse. The idea is you're exploring space, and the same thing can be said about these decks. You're exploring them to understand the most efficient way to build your colonies and ultimately build that space station. So how do I build a space station? Well, there's a couple of different things that you have to do, and all the games come with this handy card that says the path to victory. Now what you have to do is first, somebody has to have Station Lab A, B, C, and D all built in one colony. Now you'll notice the top of A has a black connector, which is the most common. And then the right of A has a yellow to yellow connection between A and B, a blue connection between B and C, and a purple connection between C and D. Then on top of that, you have to have a shipyard, and a station hull. So you want to be able, as you start the game just drawing planet cards, to start to dig into the ship deck as much as possible. You'll notice this is black just like the ship deck cards are. There's only one copy of that station hull, and it's somewhere in that ship deck. That's a little bit of a challenge. We'll talk about that in a second as well. And then additionally, you need a station command. So the first thing you probably want to shoot for is either the shipyard or the station labs. Once you have those built, then you can build a station hull, and on top of that, you can build station command. And again, there are other cards that will let you dig into the station deck and start drawing from there as well. Once you get all of that, you've got your spaceport to start building your space station. And once you start building your space station, there are 9 cards in this station deck that make up the actual space station. They are all unique, so they're easily identifiable. And once you have all of them built, then you know that you've won the game and you've been able to hold off, I guess is the easiest way to say it, the evil Sabin ships that are coming to attack you. Let's take a look at a more developed game, a little bit over time, what our command center would look like and what some of the abilities would look like as well. So here we are at a much later stage of the game. We've had 2 enemy ships, one from the planet and one from the ship deck, come out. We have a lot of different buildings which have increased our abilities, including to get the ability to shuffle an enemy ship back into its deck once per turn, which is given to us from the espionage card. We have to discard a station card to use that ability though. Well, we don't have anything that draws station cards until we had just played our Station Lab D, which lets us draw a station card. Now the only way to play a station card is through the use of ships. There's going to be additional ship cards that will say something like this: cargo ship. You can trade and gift a you can gift a card to another player, you can trade with another player, and you can play a station card with this as well. So there's going to be ship cards that allow you to build those station cards. And essentially the way the game keeps playing out is you're going to improve your colony, you're going to work with your other players to make sure you help improve their colony through trading and gifting cards to them, and you're going to want to make sure that you get enough abilities to hold off and defend against the enemy ships coming out. There's also cards that are in here that are going to force you to do some pretty bad things, like you have to discard cards or different things that will affect the turn that you play, perhaps completely end your turn in some cases. There is quite a bit of challenge, more so not in defending against these enemy ships, but working with your other players to make sure that they have the most productive colony. So as you can see right now, with all of my connection points all aligned up, the ability to build purple up here and all 4 of my station labs, I'm able to draw a planet card, I'm able to play 2 planet cards, I'm able to have a hand size of 4, I can shuffle a card, enemy ship back into their deck as long as I discard a station card for that, and then in addition I can draw a station card. Now we'll go ahead and back out and we'll show you what the station looks like fully built as well, so you can see at a successful endgame how that looks. But before we do that, I should let you know, while each player is going to have their own colony area out, the station is going to be its own area, usually in the center area of the game where everyone plays too, which is a nice advantage because then it's not something that has to fit exactly into your colony. And if you had maybe made a play earlier in the game that had blocked you from placing cards, you're not going to have to worry about that. And in addition, you'll see that the station connection points are completely different colors. So let's go ahead and set that up and we'll take a look at that. So here you can see the final space station completed. You start with your station command, which again has to be placed on a station hull that comes from the ship deck. The station command has 4 white pip connectors on each side, and then the culinary, parliament, opera house, warehouse, broadcast, weapons array, police station, and art museum all go in the same spaces every time. I highly recommend to take note of this because we had screwed this up when we were playing it the first time as well. But this is the correct configuration to win the game. Now, the station command itself simply says can only be played by the station hull card. The police station says 1 more enemy ship is required to end the game. So while the normal rules say 7, that would increase the ship count to 8. Now, as we mentioned, the little pips that are on top, the little white pips, show you how many of each card there are in each deck. And you'll notice that on each of those, there's one pip on the top. Well, what that means is the rest of the station deck are enemy ships and enemy seekers and enemy detons that will do different things. For example, the enemy seeker says, reveal immediately, demolish the mission command if it is in play, and remove the seeker from the game. So that's going to be able to destroy things in your colony if you draw that card. The challenge with that is this deck has the highest odds of drawing the enemy ships and being able to lose the game. So it really is to your benefit to make sure your colonies are as productive and as efficient as possible to make sure you can hold off a major amount of enemy ships. Because just like any other progressively harder game, as you go from digging in the planet deck to digging in the ship deck to digging into the station deck, you're going to have higher probabilities of getting those enemy ships. But essentially, that's the Lacuna Expanse. You start off very small, you start drawing some cards and playing some cards to your colony and your other players' colonies. You make them more efficient, gain more abilities, ensure to be defensive against the enemy ships coming out, and try to build up this final space station to be able to win the game. So that's the Lacuna Expanse. But is it a crit, a hit, or a miss? This may be the first time I've ever said something like this. This is a fun game that's a miss that could appeal to some people. How's that for a review? Well, let's dig in and I'll give you my thoughts behind that. First, the components are really well done. While some people may look at the Game Crafter and think they may not be very good craftsmanship, they're actually really quite well done. These are not by any means the top of the line quality, but they are very, very good. You will not be disappointed in them. In fact, the planet cards, while being smaller, are really good stock. And you can see they don't flex or bend a lot, even with some good stress on them. I like that. I don't like games where you just put a little bit of stress and those cards bend or crease or anything like that. You won't have that problem with this game. They've done a really good job with that. Same thing with the colony ability trackers. You can bend these suckers and they're not going to flex. Really, really well done. And these you're going to be using a lot because you're going to be moving those tokens back and forth on them. So why is it fun, why is it a miss, and why does it appeal to some people? Well, it's fun in terms of the cooperative design. It's a lot of fun working with other people, developing the right strategy, making sure that you build an efficient colony while making sure that you get the right cards to your teammates that they can build the most efficient colony, and basically exploring. The first couple of times that you play this game, you really do get the sense that you're a colonist in space and you're exploring because you don't know what all these cards do in each of the decks. It does a really good job at that, and it is fun. But why is it a miss? It's a miss because after 4, 5, 6 games, you start to realize there's only one way to win and one way to lose. And it's essentially draw as many cards as you can to get as many abilities to make your colony efficient, draw into the ship deck to get the station hull, and then draw into the station deck to get the station command. In fact, for the most part, what we found is focus on the ability to shuffle the enemy ships back into their deck, and there's no way that you can lose. It becomes so simple to manipulate those decks that it really leaves you wanting much more in terms of interconnectivity. There really is only the quantity of ships coming out that are the enemy ships that will cause you to lose this game. There's no way for enemy ships to attack a colony and destroy an entire colony. They will destroy pieces of the colony at times, depending on what ships you draw from each of these decks, but there's no way to really kick a player out of the game. Now, while you don't want that in a cooperative game, it would have been nice to see a little bit more combat involved in this struggle between the Earth colonists and the Saban aliens. The other thing is that, and somebody made the comment when we were playing during one of our gameplay sessions, it felt like they were playing space pipes because you have to connect things in the right order, and at times there's hard places to connect things. This planet deck has quite a few cards, and it has quite a few cards that are just connector cards, meaning that they're a blank card with 4 black pips on each end to be able to connect other buildings to it, but they don't do anything. Because of that, it makes it really sprawling, like we said before. But also because of that, it leaves a lot of things open. And we really felt that there could have been more on-card abilities to maybe one time instantly do something when they come into play. or be upgraded buildings or facilities in your colony so that it makes it a little more manageable and doesn't make it as sprawling or as long and running into each other when you're playing. The other thing too is that while it's really cool to have this ability tracker to keep track of all your different abilities, depending on how many of these you get, you can take them at any point on your turn and do them in any order, and it can get a little hectic to keep track of all of them. Now the basic idea is that you take those counters and put them on and then move them down as you use them, but then at the end of the turn you have to count back up and add them all back up again, and it can just take a little bit of time. So again, at the outset, this game is fun and you're going to enjoy playing it. But after you play it a couple of times and start to realize how that engine works and how it is one way to win or one way to lose, it's something that we think will see more time on your shelf than on your table, which is a little bit of a disappointment. The other thing too is that there's only one station hull in the ship deck and one station command in the station deck. And essentially what that means is when you lose because you didn't draw those cards. And that becomes a little bit of a disappointment when you realize there's just that one copy, that one card that you have to get in each of those decks. Now, will it appeal to some people? Yes, it will appeal to some people. The artwork's actually really cool and it has a lot of science fiction flair to it. Even though it's small and you wish it was bigger when you're playing it, it does have some really eye-catching artwork with some of the explosions and the machines and different things happening on each of the different buildings and areas inside the colony and the space station as well. It's not by any means the most beautiful artistic work ever, but it is something that is unique unto its own, which is nice. It will appeal to people who have a really good base in science fiction. In fact, the people in our playgroup who are sci-fi fans immediately were like, yes, I would own this game, I would enjoy it, but I may not play it all of the time. In fact, where we feel that this game really fits is as a quote-unquote filler game between other larger games. And I stress to put the quotes around the filler, because here's why. The game does have a good amount of strategy between you and your cooperative teammates working to build up the right efficient colonies, but it is not a filler that you're going to sit down and play in 15-20 minutes. It will take 30 to 45, sometimes 60 minutes in larger games to play this. This is a game I could easily see being played once, maybe twice in a night in between other games, but it's not something you're going to sit down and play 4, 5, 6 times in a row in a night. Because, again, unfortunately, you do start to realize there's just that one path to win or one path to lose. Is it a fun game? Yes, it's a fun game. Is it a miss of a game? At the moment, yes, but we do hope that there's some expansions because we do see some hope for this and we think that with the right expansions and the right additives to the game, it could make it up to a hit and be a really fun game. Is it something that will appeal to some people? Yes, we do feel it'll appeal to science fiction and definitely to the people who are fans of Lacuna Expanse. So, at the end of the day, it will get a miss from Crits Happen, but it does have a lot of potential and something that we suggested at least take a look at and check out on thegamecrafter.com. We would like to thank the Game Crafter. They actually provided us a copy of this game to do a review for you guys. But this is the first review where we also want to hear your opinion. We're letting you know it's a miss. We want you to tell us if it's a crit, a hit, or a miss as well. Go to our homepage at critshappen.com or to the link in the description of this video below, and you'll find the written review for the Lacuna Expanse at our homepage. At the bottom of that written review, there's a poll that you can vote crit, hit, or miss, and you can even see the results from the fans at large. So let us know. We want to be interactive, and we want to hear from you as well. Do you own Lacuna Expanse and you love it? Do you not love it, but it looks really interesting and something that you could see yourself playing over a course of time? Or have you never seen it before and you really want to know what it's all about? Let us know what you think. Also, feel free to leave your comments here on the YouTube channel. You can find us, of course, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Google Plus by searching Crits Happen, and at the homepage at critshappen.com. But until we see you next time, we hope that you enjoy building your space station in the deepest, darkest reaches of space and avoiding all of the evil Saban alien enemy ships as they come after you to destroy you. Till we see you next time, keep rolling those dice, and we hope they're all crits.